Hello and welcome to the program. This week Ukrainians are marking the 85th anniversary of the Holodomor, the Soviet man-made famine, which killed millions of Ukrainians between 1932 and 1933. Now the tragedy itself is beginning to get more and more recognition worldwide. But what's left to be done to ensure that the memory of the Holodomor keeps being passing on? Joining us today in our studio today to explain on this topic is Igor Bigun, historian at the Center for Research on the Liberation Movement. Hello and thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon.
So, as a reminder for the viewers to understand, because maybe some viewers don't know the specifics of the whole tragedy, can you remind certain pages of this history?
Yes, of course. At the beginning of the 1930s, there was the policy of the collectivization in the Soviet Union, that the Communist Party wanted to make all the peasants to join the collective farms, or kolkhozes in Russian, and many numerous villages, numerous peasants did not want to. So at the beginning of the 1930s, exactly in the 1930, there were a lot of uprisings along the whole Soviet Union, but most of them were in Ukraine. About more than 50% of all uprisings against collective farms were in Ukraine, and about 1 million people took part in them. And that's why the Soviet authorities had to make their policy mild, and that was to encourage people to join these collective farms. And the next years, they were more successful. More people were likely to join the kolkhoz. But as far as they saw that kolkhozes were not effective, that they did not make them their household more rich, so people began just to leave them. And in order to stop this, in order to force all Ukrainians to join collective farms, the Soviet government started some kind of policy which led to Holodomor. So they sent troops, they sent Soviet activists just to, in fact, to rob people of all their food, of all their supplies. So to make them see that if they are individuals, they are doomed to death. The only way was to join the collective farm.
Now that was for the repression at the time. Let's come back to today. Recently, one of the U.S. states recognized the Holodomor as a genocide. Why is it important that the U.S. states and the U.S. in general recognize the Holodomor as a genocide?
It is of very high importance because the USA are the most powerful country in the world, and so it is the world authority for many other countries. So if the USA start to pay more attention to the problem of recognition of the Holodomor, so many other its allies or other just countries who orient at the United States, they can just follow their example.
Now, that leads me to my next question. Some countries still didn't recognize the Holodomor as a genocide. In your position, from your point of view, why is that so? What's stopping them to recognize it?
Well, I think it's obvious that the biggest and the most powerful opponent of Holodomor recognition is the Russian Federation. The Russian Federation positions itself as the follower of the Soviet Union, and the Putin administration tries to make the image of the Soviet power and the Joseph Stalin himself more to look more like gentle,
acceptable, you would say?
Acceptable, yes. They try to hide their crimes, and genocide is maybe the ultimate crime among others. So that is the reason why the Russian Federation doesn't recognize Holodomor. And of course, there are countries which see Russia as example for themselves. They follow their politics, so they also don't want to make their relationship with Russian wars, so they also don't recognize Holodomor as genocide of the Ukrainian nation.
So now it becomes some sort of a political and geopolitical fight. But now, how does this international recognition, how does it help building a Ukrainian identity as a whole?
The recognition of the Holodomor, it's not only worldwide but also in Ukraine, makes Ukrainians to think more critical of the Soviet era, of the communist regime, and I think that remembrance of the Holodomor among Ukrainian people is one of the most significant reasons why the sympathy to Stalin and the Soviet power has always been lower than in Russia, in neighboring country. So I think this is one of the one of the most important parts of Ukrainian identity is that we don't have such big nostalgia about the Soviet Union as other countries do.
Now, recently last year, on the screen there was a movie called Bitter Harvest about the Holodomor. This year there is this movie called Gareth Jones about this journalist who unveiled the whole story. How do you explain that international crews are taking care of this story and not necessarily Ukrainian crews? You know, it's like international Canadian Ukrainian, of course, but on the other side, for Gareth Jones, it's a Polish plus international cast. Why not the Ukrainian? Why not a Ukrainian artist?
I want to say that there were Ukrainian movies about the Holodomor, and there was Povodyr film, but I think that this topic is goes beyond the national borders, beyond Ukrainian borders, and this is a good mark that foreign filmmakers pay attention to this our tragedy of Holodomor, or the genocide, and this is a sign that this is not our home, the domestic matter, that is international matter. And of course, Gareth Jones was a foreign journalist, not Ukrainian, and I think it's a person which is worth to be to be a character, a main character of a movie. And I think foreign filmmakers just see that this story could be a good plot for a movie.
Now, so this week marks the, we said it earlier, the 85th anniversary of the Holodomor. Are there other initiatives to raise awareness? Are there concrete steps, let's say, with governments, within governments, within other institutions to raise awareness of this genocide worldwide and also internally?
As far as I know, there is a worldwide campaign. Ukraine remembers, the world acknowledges. It's the slogan of this campaign, and this campaign was initiated by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine. They initiate commemorations in various countries where Ukrainian diaspora lives, and I saw many many pieces of news in the media about this commemoration. This is one part, and the other part is, for example, the Ukrainian and Hungarian military opened a joint memorial to Holodomor. It's one of the it's a bright example of joint commemoration of this tragedy. And as far as I know, this week there will be a set of official events, official commemorations dedicated to the 85th anniversary of the Holodomor. There will be a scientific forum which is going to gather numerous historians and researchers of Ukraine and foreign countries. So the scale of this commemoration is, I think, is good, it's high and acceptable.
Well, thank you for this explanation. It was a pleasure to have you in the studio today.
Thank you too.
That was Igor Bigun, historian at the Center for Research on the Liberation Movement. Thank you for watching the program and stay tuned for the rest.